Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate SNS. Hope everyone's been having a great week. Got the weekend coming up here in a few days. For those of you who have been looking at this Mega Million lottery, it sounds like it is now up to like $790 million. So, someone who doesn't usually play the lottery, I think I'll go drop a couple bucks in on that just to see what happens. Your chances of winning are not high, guys. So don't be planning like you're fixing to win this stuff and quit your jobs or whatever. Don't do anything crazy. But we want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing around the country. So I was reading some reports in basically response to the water shortages that are happening over in California and the other states out west. So there was actually recently a post that came out talking about it is the worst drought that's been seen in the last 1,200 years. Here's the resource for that. Now, there are some other articles that were released later, or I guess I should say earlier this week, and it sounds like they were wanting to channel water from the Mississippi River over out west, and that did not happen. They went up to vote, and they're like, "No, get your own water. Shouldn't have built in a desert." So California's response back to them was simply, "Well, don't ask us for anything because we don't want your muddy water anyway." I don't know how many states have actually ever asked California for anything, to be honest. So it seemed like kind of just a backhanded response from them guys. But it comes down to this. Sure, it's nice to be able to build to an area where you're not going to have a lot of rainstorms, a lot of tornadoes, and maybe not even a lot of tropical storms. But those types of areas, because they don't get rain, they don't really get snow and stuff, they're desert regions. So, I mean, you got to really think about where you're moving to. I know there's a lot of cheap land out, say, in Arizona right now, and even parts of New Mexico, over in Nevada and stuff like that. But that is going to be desert property. You're not going to have water. You're looking at anywhere from 2 to 5,000 feet for a well, that is not 2 feet, that is 2,000 to 5,000 feet, and sometimes deeper to hit those aquifers because the aquifer levels are dropping considerably out west right now. Now, out here on the East Coast, we get plenty of rain, especially down here in Florida. Usually, we do get our dry spells. It is hard to do gardens down in this area because you may be banking on a rainstorm that's coming in and it can just divert out of the Gulf, just like that, and you don't have that rain for that day. So be mindful when you're doing your gardens, guys. So when we look around and we're seeing empty shelves in the stores, a lot of people need to realize when you're seeing those empty shelves, this is not just something that's just sort of kind of happening. It's not just solely based on a response of what's happening over with the European nations right now, where you have Russia invading the Ukraine. It sounds like that situation is not going to resolve anytime soon, unfortunately, for those people over there. But there's a lot of countries coming in and are trying to give as much aid as they can with food and water supplies and stuff like that, which is really, when you start looking at what's happening around the world, that's dwindling from our natural stocks and stuff as well. But you got to help people as you can. So one of the things that we are led to believe is that the inflation prices, the gas prices, the stuff that have been coming up was just because of that conflict over there. But understand, before that conflict even began, we were seeing our prices of our fuel going up exponentially. They were not slowing down, they were going up anyway. We were looking at situations where our food and stuff like that, we were already having supply issues, not just from a lack of food being able to be grown, but from the basically them being able to ship the stuff. So there was a lot of logistics involved in that, where supposedly it was reduced workforce because of the COVID pandemic that went around, but also because the fuel prices were going up already and truck drivers were not moving the loads. Because you have to understand, when you're driving a big rig or something like that and you're moving produce or whatever type of stuff you're moving around in them trucks, those drivers, they have to make a minimum that's going to cover fuel costs. It's going to cover the cost of them being able to go from one side of the country to the other. And when that price doesn't match what they need to be making, it's like any job, guys. They're not going to move that load. So that was part of the issues that was going on. When you start having a lot of these truck prices and stuff like that for your diesel fuel, and it starts increasing, then you're going to see increased shipping costs and stuff. And we, the consumers, will now be footing that. Obviously, it's not up to the truck drivers to foot that bill. There's a lot of independent truck drivers that were barely making it to begin with, and now that the prices have gone up, it's getting very hard hard for them. I say stand behind your truckers, guys. Whatever it takes, if they're coming in and they're saying, this is what we need to do to be able to get it back, then we need to push for those types of laws to be instated. But it comes down to a few little factors. Basically, if you're already stocked up and stuff, that's great. There's a lot of people out there that have a year's supply of food. There's people out there that have 20 years supply of food for their entire families, and that's awesome that they can do that. But with the pricing of everything that's going up, it's costing a lot, especially for the long storage food. And that's if you can even get it in stock. So I had looked around at a few different websites and stuff last night, and a lot of it was the flash frozen stuff or the freeze dried foods and stuff like that, and different types of vegetables, fruits, and stuff that fall in that freeze dried type of a situation, meats and stuff. And the pricing of that has just gone through the roof. But one of the things I noticed that was really kind of startling about it is the fact that everything says out of stock on most of the web pages you're going to. So if you thought you were going to come in and buy a year's supply, you're going to be lucky to get a month's supply at this point. Now, when you're looking at the empty shelves at the store, and I know that's kind of a mixed thing, and we discussed this a little bit the other day, where when you're seeing those empty shelves here in 2022, their response to that has been to shorten the shelf length and the shelf depth to give it the optical illusion that, yeah, there's plenty of food here. But if you pay attention, you're going to notice that they're just making a different size space for that stuff. So where we used to have aisles where, a quarter of an aisle was for things such as asparagus and different types of specialty type vegetables and stuff, those are now condensed down to just a small portion of a shelf. And it may look like it's full, but when you figure it used to be 3 shelves high by 2 the 6 to 8 foot wide shelves wide, it's no longer like that. There's a couple stores up here that went and checked out Grocery Outlet. They used to be the place that I would go to get my long-term type of foods. I don't know if you have those in your area. They are down in Florida areas, but typically you just paying 10% above cost is what you pay. But you're not able to really find availabilities there now. So yeah, we got plenty of corn. There's plenty of green beans. If you ever look at what happens in a situation where the food is projected to basically become non-existent and it's on its way out because of whatever resource issues we're having, and you can look to a lot of the different types of movies and stuff because they try to follow science in some of that stuff. The last crops that are usually grown are corn and green beans because of the way that they grow. But eventually you're going to get to a situation where it's going to deplete the ground so heavy that it's not going to keep anything else alive, and you're going to start dealing with blight issues. And blight is not something that will just be to one plant or the other. Is going to spread, and it can spread with the wind. So something to think about, something to keep in mind. I think it's important that we stock up what we can on supplies. I think if you've not been stocking or prepping at this point, you're going to have it really hard to do that because of the cost. So you're already looking at your grocery bill has probably almost doubled, if not almost tripled for some people. And that's going to depend a lot on where you buy your food and stuff. So one of the things that I would recommend is try to grow your own food if you can. And then it's going to free up a little bit of funds where you can, take part of that and actually be able to stock up. But again, like I say, you're looking at going from being able to buy, almost a half buggy full for $30 to where if you get that same amount, you're looking at, close to $100. So that's one of the things that with my preps, I used to be able to take $20 a week and go out and I could actually prep up quite a bit of stuff. You're looking at 50-cent cans, sometimes cheaper, and you could really stock your pantry up. But you can't do that anymore too much. At $1 a can, $1.50 a can, the cans are smaller. There's less stuff there. They're adding more water to it and stuff. Now there are some stores that will put the net weight of the product plus the water and let you know what each one is so you can be aware of what's going on. But that's not the case of all products. So they'll just have a net weight for what that can with everything in it weighs. And you have to be mindful of that because you might just be buying a bunch of water. But if you're in California, that's probably not a bad idea because, hey, it's going to have some vitamins or whatever in it from the produce or the, the beans and stuff that was in it anyway. And it sounds like you're running out of water anyway. You don't want no muddy Mississippi water. So there you go, guys. But it's important that we look at what's happening. If you're in a state where the depletion of your resources and your foods and stuff are getting to a level where it's really hurting you, it might be time to think about trying to relocate. I know that's not feasible for everybody, but let me tell you, it can be done. It takes hard work, it takes determination, and it really takes some planning on that type of a behalf as well. But there's people that live in their cars all the time until they get situated. They have that situation down here, but unfortunately, what typically happens is once they make that move to their car, they're never able to get out of it because most jobs want you to have a physical address and bank accounts and stuff like that. Now, maybe you have a bank account and you're thinking, okay, well, I'll move to another state, but I won't have an address. Well, the great thing for you is your bank account is good anywhere you go in the United States. I keep my bank account. I've got a few, and they're in different states, and that's one of the great things where I don't have to worry about, I have to go open a local bank account. We are no longer in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s. All of your banking can be done online, guys. You don't even have to show up at the bank anymore. And they have a lot of different alerts you can set up if someone tries to access your stuff. So those are going to be some avenues if you decide you want to relocate to a different area. I will tell you, most of the people seem to be coming down into Florida. Maybe not necessarily this area where we're at, unless they're retired, but down into the southern parts of Florida and stuff. And what we ask as Florida residents, if you do come down to Florida, leave your anti-constitutional ideologies in the state that you're leaving. And the reason you're leaving that state is because they don't work. So don't bring it down here and start trying to push it down here in this area because it doesn't go over very well. And we actually like to have a state that has a little bit of funding to it. We don't want a broke state like what they had over in California and parts of New York, New Jersey and stuff like that, where they've just depleted these systems and stuff. And we're seeing some of that depletion now. There's actually a lot of new laws that are coming into effect that's going to make it so you're no longer just going to sit on government stipend or a state sponsored money and market or whatever and just sit back and relax. You actually are going to have to take and prove that you're trying to get a job and stuff, and they're going to be limiting that as well. So I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of people think, well, this is America and everything's free. Well, understand it's not free. Taxpayers like me, taxpayers like you, we're the ones paying for everything, and I'm tired of not being able to get a return. If you look at it from this way, when it asks for how many dependents that I claim in a tax, I just claim myself. But the fact is, we're probably actually, probably got about a few hundred dependents per person down here because people are just living off the system, and that's not good. And our government source down here, our state government, has realized that, and they're trying to put a stop to it. So I don't imagine there's going to be that many more people coming to this state in the near future. Most of them are now stopping off in areas like Georgia, which has become a mess. When you look at what's happening in Atlanta and all these different types of riotings, and it's just horrible, guys. It really is. It's a situation where I think we're going to start seeing what we were seeing here just a few years ago, people in the streets stopping traffic, pulling drivers out and stuff like that. And they like to call those protests. That is not called protests, unfortunately, guys. But our advice here, get as much food as you can. Start stocking water as well, guys. So you may be wondering, well, how do I stock water? Well, you can do that pretty easily. You want to make sure that you get a water safe container. It's going to be BPA free. You can buy those. You can get those at the camping section at Walmart. You can order them online. I would not recommend anything larger than 7 gallons because you want to be able to move it around. 5 gallons is probably a little more key, especially if you're, not running around trying to, work out and stuff like that. You want to be able to move stuff with a fairly decent ease. So about 5 gallons. Old milk jugs and stuff, they don't last. The seams eventually start to split. But how do you package that water for long-term survival? Well, if you're using city water, it's already chlorinated. So you're going to have where it's going to keep longer. If you're using well water, you can actually take it. It's going to depend on the type of chlorine bleach that you buy, guys. So there's different levels of chlorine, ppm, and you're going to have to look up on a chart, and you can do that with a quick Google search, how much chlorine to add to a gallon of water or 7 gallons of water or whatever the size is, and you want to add that amount to it. And what that's going to do is that's going to condition the water for long-term storage. Now, I do not recommend drinking a lot of chlorine or anything like that, but if you're looking for a way to store water and water will actually sour if you don't properly, have it contained. So One of the things about like stream water and stuff like that is it stays agitated as it's moving, and that's keeping oxygen and stuff like that, keeps oxygenated and all. So, you can add some of that. They have chlorine tabs and stuff that you can do. They have long-term water, potable water pills you can put in, and then you drop another one in before you drink it. That way it nullifies iodine and things like that that they use inside of it as well. So I would recommend that you start looking at that, especially if you're out west, because you're probably going to start needing that. There's rationing going on now in parts of California where they're actually limiting how much water people can use. Now, mind you, that has not stopped the real rich people from having swimming pools and stuff. Their swimming pools and their hot tubs and stuff, they are not empty. They're not going to be emptied anytime soon. But imagine when water finally does start to run out there, they're going to be drinking out of their own pools. So, one of the things, my recommendation to California, I know that no one from California that has any legislative change is even watching this, but stop selling the water overseas. Okay. I understand you make money selling water to Syria, you make money selling water to Saudi Arabia and things like that. Stop selling it. Keep it there for the American people. It is an American resource. It is a resource from America, and it needs to be there for the people. You're making money off, other people's misery, and that's not right. So, again, guys, when you go up to stores, we use Walmart as our medium here. And the reason we do that is because most families, not all, but most families will do at least 50% of their shopping at a Walmart for their produce nowadays. There are other stores obviously out there that sell produce and stuff, but the fact is you're going to be paying 2 or 3 times what it used to cost, at a Walmart. So I can't even guess what it's going to be now. If you're looking for good sources of meats, check your local butchers and stuff, guys. I'm really surprised to see that you can still get quite a bit of good meat, good cuts of meat, I should say, from your local butchers. And while it's a little bit higher in cost right now, it's still cheaper than what you're going to see in the store. But that's not going to last. And the reason it's not going to last is because feed prices are going up. With the wheat shortages and stuff that's happening, the fertilizer shortages and stuff, expect that to catch up pretty soon. Over in Europe, they are actually slaughtering out animals that are not really to butcher weight yet, but they're slaughtering them out because the feed that they were going to be using, the grains they were using to feed that feed, they are now saying we're probably going to need that for people. So they're slaughtering those flocks early, and they're actually getting that stuff on the market, which is good for people who are able to store long term, but it's going to catch up to them eventually anyway. So just be careful about what you're doing. Again, guys, keep prepping. Don't let naysayers tell you, well, you're a hoarder. Hey, whatever you want to call it, man. People like to come up and act like you're pulling something from their family's mouth. The chances are they weren't going to be buying that anyway. If they were, they weren't going to be buying that much of it anyway. What is important and what you need to do is you need to focus on prepping to make sure maybe you live alone, but you have family in the area. Try to plan, because if they're not planning, and that seems to be the most common response we get, is people are saying, why tell my family about prepping, and it just in one ear and out the other. Some of them are starting to wake up now, but it's your choice. Do you want to prep where you're going to be able to take care of you and your family, or just yourself? Because they're going to come to your house looking for food. Are you going to turn them away with empty bellies? Are you going to turn your nieces and nephews or grandchildren or even your children away when they're hungry? I would hope the answer to that is no, but I don't know your family situation. That is what it is. I would not turn a complete stranger, away with an empty belly. They would not be added to a group, but they would be sent on and sent packing. That's just the way it is. Now, you're going to eventually run into a situation where you're going to have to sit on what you have, because if you're letting people just have food, then the word's going to get around. You're going to become the new local, supplier of everything free. So you got to be careful with that as well. But the main thing I can tell you is follow your heart on that. If you've got a able-bodied person and they're not even willing to go out and forage natural foods that are growing right out in their yards or right out along the side of the road, guys, there's plenty of stuff that's growing. But what we run into is we see people they're too lazy to get at it, man. And when it comes to laziness, if you don't work, you don't eat. That's just the way it is, man. We're supposed to, says that we eat by working and by the sweat of our brows where we get our bread. That is in the Bible. And if you're not willing to work, then the way I look at it is people are within their right to say no when it comes to giving you food. Now, if you're working hard and you're still not able to make ends meet, then yes, people will respond to that and try to help out. But I hope everyone's having a great day. We're going to get out of here, but keep prepping. Do not stop prepping. That's the most important thing to take away from this video right now. And your prepping goes for everything from food, water, medical supplies, first aid supplies, water filters, whatever it takes. Down here in Florida, we don't have a shortage of water. Anywhere you look at, it may not rain for a month sometimes, but there's plenty of water around. I have seen our reservoirs a little low before, but that's typically because we have just opened a dam to allow some of that stuff out into the bay. But everyone have a wonderful day.